and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and this is one of many videos I'm doing on homeschool law throughout the world. This video is going to focus on the provinces in Canada. Now, let's be clear, I'm not Canadian. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in education law, so please check your province. I'm getting this information from a curriculum website called study.com. It seems to be the easiest one I could find when going through a Google search. That's not part of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, which I will probably mention a lot in all of these videos. They are a far-right Christian organization whose sole purpose has been since probably the 80s to eliminate all regulation requiring homeschooling whatsoever. Their goal is not education, it's indoctrination. They are, like I said, they're part of the alt-right Christian groups that used to have a stranglehold on homeschooling, particularly in the United States. That stranglehold is loosening because of the internet. We are very happy about it. But again, this is going to be the main thing that's going to pop up. I had to work to find other sites that are going to provide me easy information for homeschool laws because I don't want to associate with them. Being a non-religious person and certainly not part of the alt-right crazy, we are probably racist and anti-gay and all sorts of anti-inclusion thing. And again, they want to get rid of all regulation, which is not even what I want as a homeschooler. I don't support deregulation. We probably need regulation to help people. But again, this video I'm going to focus on is the provinces of Canada. This information is coming from study.com, which looks to be a curriculum website. I can't find if it's religious or not, so I'm going to assume it's not. And that's kind of my goal. Again, I don't want to use religious sites because I'm not a religious person. And that's not how. I'm a secular homeschooler. My husband's an atheist. I'm somewhere between atheist, agnostic, was a practicing pagan for many years. So, but again, this is Canada. So, starts with Alberta here. So, each year homeschoolers in Alberta must submit a notice of intent to a local school board or private school. So, when developing your child's curriculum, you may choose to use Alberta program of study, which means you're going to connect with the school that you chose. So you have various information. You can create your own program. The school, from what I can tell, that you choose to notify is also responsible for supporting you. So that's their thing. You choose some sort of private or public institution. They agree to essentially mentor you and provide resources for your homeschooling. So that looks to be the major issues in Alberta. So not too difficult. It's kind of similar to parts in the U.S. with the exception of normally in the U.S. you just pick a school board. Here you're picking a school or a different school board to notify, and then they help you out if you want them to. So let's move on to British Columbia, which looks very, very easy. Eventually, you need to register as a homeschool by September 30th of each year. And there doesn't seem to be any other requirements. So essentially, you can do whatever you want, and you just have to register every year that you're homeschoolers so they can keep track of things. And hopefully I pronounced this province correctly. Sorry if I don't. Again, not Canadian. Manitoba. So Manitoba, you'll need to submit a student notification form every year that you homeschool your child. You can find basically the form on their website and the Advanced Learning Division. So they also need to provide an outline of what you will teach and submit reports on your child's progress in January and June of every year that you homeschool. So be aware your program outline must cover core topics including mathematics, language arts, science, and social studies. Manitoba also recommends your child learns about physical education, the arts, additional languages, and career topics. Always support those additional languages. The U.S. isn't big on doing that. In fact, as far as I know, none of the states in the U.S. recommend an additional language. I could be wrong, but it's really not pressured in the U.S. except for maybe in high school where you take like 2 years, which is kind of pointless because your brain doesn't absorb it as well. Our child is hopefully going to learn Spanish, if not some Romanian, which are the two languages we're aware our family speaks, at least somewhat. All right, let's move on to New Brunswick. So New Brunswick requires homeschoolers to submit an annual homeschooling application form. You'll need to provide instruction in language arts, mathematics, social studies, science, technology, health and physical education, French, music and art, and career development. So that is, and then you have to keep a portfolio of your child's academic work in this province. So that's a little complicated, not too bad. You just have to keep track of things, keep your portfolio, and submit an annual report to New Brunswick. Not as easy as a few of the other ones, but not that difficult as compared to some U.S. states like New York or West Virginia. All right, now on to Newfoundland and Labrador. So to homeschool in this province, you will need to complete a homeschool application form and submit a curriculum annually. You will also need to meet with a representative of the school prior to beginning instruction for at least 2 years. Additionally, the first year you homeschool, you will need to submit 3 evaluations for your child's educational progress. The second year, you will need to submit 2 evaluations, and your child will need to be evaluated once a year from then on. If your child would like to obtain a high school graduation certificate, he or she will need to go to your local public school to complete midterms and finals. So it looks like you need to do a lot of paperwork here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Not entirely homeschool friendly, but it could be much worse. But still, they kind of want to keep track of things, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not against government regulation when it comes to homeschooling. All right, moving on to the Northwest Territory. If you homeschool in the Northwest Territory, you'll need to register your child. Your child's education progress will be assessed by the principal of your local school or a different individual assigned to the task in the province. So essentially you register, and then somebody in authority will kind of keep an eye on things just to make sure your kid's being educated. Not a bad trade-off. I'm sure you form a relationship with these people, particularly if you unschool, and make sure your kid is learning. See nothing wrong with that. On to Nova Scotia, one of the first provinces that I've actually been to. Nova Scotia is very pretty. It was not our favorite part of our trip, I'll say that. Possibly because it was very wet and very foggy, and despite the fact that it was August. But we live in a place that doesn't have a lot of weather. So, but again, wet and foggy. But let's go on to homeschool laws. You can homeschool in Nova Scotia by completing a registration form from homeschooling. You find it on their Department of Education website. You must complete this form every year. You also need to submit a progress report detailing your child's education every year in June. Not too bad. Registration every year and then a progress report. Not a bad trade-off. Oh, fun. I can't pronounce this properly. I am very, very sorry if I mispronounce this province. I don't speak Canadian. My French is horrible, and I'm pretty sure this province is in Inuit. So don't speak that either. Nunavut. So again, sorry for the people who live in Nunavut for mispronunciation. So in Nunavut, you are required to register your child to homeschool prior to homeschooling. You'll also be subject to some form of assessment by the local educational district. So again, pretty simple. You register with the school and they keep track of it. Okay, moved on to Ontario. You can homeschool your child in Ontario without submitting any forms for your child if your child has never attended any form of schooling. So if you intend to homeschool from the start like we do, you don't have to do anything. If your child is attended public or private school, you will need to withdraw them and submit a notice of intent to homeschool. You are not required to keep any records, so this one's very, very easy. On to Quebec, and I've heard stories when I've originally researched this. Quebec is very French, obviously, and not very homeschool friendly because neither is France. In fact, I think it's mostly illegal in France. So in order to homeschool in Quebec, you will need to provide your child with instruction in language arts, social studies, mathematics, science and technology, arts, and personal development. You will also need to complete an application request for homeschooling every year, as well as submit a homeschool education plan. Your child will need to be evaluated annually as well. This evaluation can involve the submission of student portfolio and or completion of exams. Actually not too bad. I think when I did some of my original research, the head of this province was trying to get rid of homeschooling. They might still be, but it seems to be, as of right now, they're not succeeding. So let's move on to one of the most beautiful provinces, and I believe the smallest in all of Canada, Prince Edward Island. Yes, that was one of the highlights of our honeymoon. Oddly enough, so was Old Quebec. Very beautiful place. It was probably one of Prince Edward Island and Old Quebec were probably the top. Okay, so on to homeschooling in Prince Edward Island. To homeschool on Prince Edward Island, you will need to submit a notice of intent to homeschool along with information about the education you intend to provide to the education minister. So pretty basic, probably because it's a tiny island and everybody knows each other. Move on to, oh fun, another one that I'm going to butcher. I'm very, very sorry. I think this is pronounced correctly. Saskatchewan. So you can homeschool in Saskatchewan by submitting a notice of intent and an education plan. You are allowed to request at least one standardized assessment for your child per year in Saskatchewan. Additionally, you must keep a portfolio that represents your child's academic growth and provide the state with a yearly progress report. Not too bad. Good idea to keep track of things. And that looks like all of the provinces. So, yep, that's it. So that is Canada. Probably better than the US, with the exception of possibly Ontario. I'm always in favor of at least some regulation and some monitoring, just because in the US we have a lot of issues in certain states like Texas and Oklahoma and possibly Alaska, where there is no regulation, and even New Jersey, and kids fall through the cracks. And you ended up with people who I've read on Reddit homeschooling and unschooling sites that parents take them out of school and don't teach them, or they just have them read the Bible, and they get older, get resentful, they blame homeschooling when it's their parents' fault, and their lives are just kind of screwed up because they fell through the cracks and their parents neglected and abused them. So again, always in favor of some regulation and some checking up on, just to protect those kids who can fall through the cracks. So that is it for Canada. Again, I'm getting this information from study.com. So check with your province, check with the homeschool groups. This is just kind of an overview from an American from the American Southwest. So don't take my word as gold. I will link the site in the description below so you know where I'm getting my information. That's it for this review. You can check out my US reviews that kind of go over all 50 states as well as the territories in DC, their basics of their education laws, all of which can be very complicated because the US has to be, and it's just huge. Canada is huge, but not broken up into quite so many pieces. So thank you, and please check, like, and subscribe. You can also check out my book reviews. Bye bye.